Okay, so we're back for part two. This is consolidation from what was an overwintered hive that just doesn't seem to be doing as well. So I'm going to actually put them in a nuke box. I have these cardboard nuke boxes that I got from Man Lake. They came pre-assembled, which is fine. A little bit on the sides are starting to pop out a bit. The other hives that I have, I had to use some rubber bands, so that might be the issue. And the flaps want to keep flapping back and forth. So what I have to do, as this is part two, there's literally only 2.5 frames of bees. So here's my 1 frame of bees. I'm going to make sure that the queen's not on here because she's on the other side, which is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put these bees in here to get the frame on here so that it can get started on holding it together. I want to put these frames in the middle as much as possible so that the brood chamber is directly in the middle. That's important. And then the honey frames are going to go on the outside. This hive has a ton of honey frames left over from the winter, so that's fine. And then, of course, they have a bunch of honey stores inside of their hives. All of my hives that I've seen so far have had the same problem. Not all of them, I'm sorry. I keep saying that. The ones that had trouble that I've seen so far have been, 1, they had older queens. 2, like older than a year. 2, the hives were treated with HopGuard instead of Formic Pro. And 3, they all had mite issues afterwards, so I might not have done my treatment in time. So this is the frame that I saw the queen on. There's some brood here, little tiny baby brood. So it's a larger queen. I should be able to spot her. And at this time, I don't see her, but this is the, oh, there she is. Okay. So again, here's our queen again. So we'll go over this again, just in case. But there's the queen right here. So you can see her. There's my finger. There's the queen right there. Black thorax, longer. She's slender, but long. See? So that's the queen. And then you can see that she has a little bit of brood here. So that's her brood patch. She also has on this side brood. So super important for me to keep that in the middle because their food is there, the brood is there, the queen is there. I'm going to make sure that I don't squish her at all. Put the frames back together. They have their bee space that they love. Here we go. Now I'm going to take this 3rd frame out of here. This one I haven't loosened up yet, but I will. This 3rd frame has honeybees on it. The rest of the hive is pretty much empty. But this hive, you can see right here, this is what it looks like for the hives that struggled, that had mite issues. So you'll see just a bunch of dead bees at the bottom. They ended up freezing, basically almost like frozen in time. They froze, they clustered, they didn't have a chance, but this is what's left over, which is probably the baby bees that had overwintered. So that's what I'm guessing, and then they're now going to be hatching soon. So I'm going to put these back in here as well. They have their honey there, they have their brood, they have all the babies that they need. I'm going to keep these frames towards the middle. I'll add a honey frame on the outside. So it's important that I go through this hive and find one of the frames that has honey in it, like a little bit more than the others. I kind of feel like a failure at some point because I know it's beekeeping is all about learning and everything, but you do your best and then things like this happen that are out of your control, or at least something that you didn't expect happens with your hive, and then you're just left with it, you know, and just, it's so sad. So regardless, these are the nice sunny days, so it's time to inspect the bees. This frame has a little bit more honey, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape off the dead bees from here, which is good. There are some queen cup cells on here that are open, so I don't know if this hive had requeened itself at some point in time, which is probable, so that might have been part of the issue. I don't know. So here's 1, 2, 3 frames, and then of course 4 frames. And what we're going to want to do with this hive is we're definitely going to want to go ahead and I have to make sure the queen's not on here so I don't accidentally squish her. We're going to want to go ahead with this hive and feed them sugar syrup. So the reason is because they're just so small and they don't really have, the honey flow is not on right now, the nectar flow. So that's kind of a thing that is going on. This is the only other frame. There was a queen cup cell on here, so I just don't know. There's a little bit, they're putting a little bit of pollen in here on one side, and the rest of it's just dead bees. So I'm going to scrape off the dead bees as much as I can. They'll clean out the rest of the hive. This is a good frame with a little bit of pollen and starters, so I'll put this on the end, so that way we have a good end frame. We have good middle frames, which is the brood, and then we have the other ones. There's no sense in them having all of this room if they don't need it. They can't even use it right now. It's crazy. And it stinks, so I can tell you that. Not like smelly stinks, but like just stinks in your heart that this happened. And there's nothing really, you know, that I can do about it other than try to bring them back. So my hives are the same way, and I just have to bring them back, and that's all I can do. This is a really heavy frame. So because this one's so heavy, I'm gonna have to swap this one out for the other one because this is a really good frame full of honey. So let's take this one out. It's not as heavy. Make sure there's no queenie on there. We'll put the heavy frame in here because that's always best to have as much food as possible. And that one actually fits together in the puzzle of frames that they glued together. Okay, so here we go. Some of the hives too have been showing a little bit of signs of aggression. So normally they're super docile, but again, I just treated them with oxalic acid vaporization yesterday because I was afraid of the mite issue. Man, this box is just giving me the pits. You want to have your frames a certain way. You want to have them uniform, but I'm telling you, I am not going to be able to be as successful as I need to be, but that's fine. No big deal. Okay, so now the bees are in the nuke. That's super important that we discussed. The bees are in the nuke. Everything's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and put on their lid. They have a hole in the front so they can come in and out. They can also get ventilation. But I'm going to go ahead and just have to either A, cut a hole in the box, put the sugar syrup on top, or I can go ahead and build my own feeder. I've been building my own tops is what I've been doing and using mesh and stuff like that. But if it gets rainy or cold and they can't go out and fly and forage, I mean, they're not going to do any better. So, and then the fronts of these keep popping out. So I had to put tape on some of the other boxes because the bees can come in and out of there. Well, so can pests and things like that. So here she is. Everything's good to go. Now I'm going to have to take this apart. And as I take this apart, I'm going to have to move it around because the foraging bees are trying to come in. It's midday. That's fine. They're going to want to come back in with their queen. And this gives me a better chance to show you what exactly has been going on that I have to deal with as a beekeeper. I mean, this happens to all of us. So I'm going to set this here, and you'll be able to see from there a good view as to what's going on with that box. It's thousands upon thousands of dead bees. I mean, thousands. So mine I put in the compost. That's what you got to do. So this nuke is fine. It's a little bit heavy because there's honey in here. So I'm going to put the nuke back here where it was. Why not keep the same space that they're in? I mean, they get to be here. If it gets chilly, I'll go ahead and consolidate. I mean, not consolidate, but I'll actually wrap them. But it's not. It's supposed to be really warm. So as I was going through and doing, I did the video of the mite washes and things like that. That was super important to see because I normally just treat regardless of doing mite washes. I mean, that's what I do. But it's just important to see what's going on with the bees' health and everything. So this is what it looks like, and this is what you're up against. Sometimes not every year can be perfect. It's not what we think it is, and sometimes, you know, we have just the mites are really taking a toll this year. So it's kind of surprising compared to the last 3 years have been amazing. So I was really surprised, but I have to tell you, my other queens have been making a comeback. So they're doing really good, and the ones that are 1 year, not even a year old yet, the ones that ended up requeening in like July, August, they ended up doing just fine. So this is everything. I took off my suit because it's hot. 1, 2, I don't need it right now. They're totally fine. They're going to end up going into here and figuring out where their queen is. They have no choice. They'll start doing their Nasanov gland fanning of the pheromones, and they'll be able to tell all the bees that this is their home. So this should be fine. But I'll take you over here and you can see exactly this. So this is what it looks like. And this is it. So where all the fuzzy stuff is, it's not mold. That's the oxalic acid vaporization. So it's definitely not mold on there. I've checked it before, but that's all the vaporization. That's how it's supposed to do. It's supposed to crystallize and things like that. I kept wondering, why are the bees not using the bottom entrance? So I blocked it off because they don't want any pests in there, and they were using the top entrance only. Well, of course they were. That's what they're doing. So because this is why all of this was stuck in here. So what I need to do is just take it all and basically just go dump it. So if I do a mite wash count on it, it's fine. But I would just end up putting all this in there. I'm looking for my hive tool. So there you go. This is it. This is what happens. So, but they have a great screen bottom board. But if I was to look around at the bees and stuff like that, I'd end up finding mites on them. So it's just unfortunate. But this is like literally took the colony down to 90%. That's it. So they're running on a 10% capacity right now, and you know, it is what it is. I've got all this materials that I can go ahead and upcycle once they get bigger again. I'll put the frames in the freezer because they're really good frames with great foundation. All the bee comb is on there, is really good. So everything looks amazing. It's just a matter of survival of the fittest, and it's unfortunate because there's really, I mean, nothing I can do at this point. But this is just how it works. So I will go ahead and clean everything up, and then right now they're just going to recuperate in a nuke box. That hive over there was basically the same thing. The one on the very end from my other video had done amazing, so that's one of the ones that had requeened and is super healthy. This one, they're doing great. They're rebounding. It's just a matter of not using treatments that are not working the best for my apiary. That's all it's to it. Some work for other people, some don't. I mean, it just depends on your choice as to treatments and things like that. So, and there's those beetles. People say there's no small hive beetles, but I'm telling you what, these beetles are trying to be inside of here, getting all inside of the honey and everything else like that. And that right there is one of the beetles that is clearly coming outside of the hive. So, the camera doesn't want to focus, but you get the gist. It's there. It's a beetle. And it's got those little things, so regardless, it's got to go. Anyways, thank you. I hope this helps. I mean, don't get deterred if this happens to you, because that's what I feel like. I feel like a failure, but all I can do is help the bees and just keep chugging along and get better at it and help them out. I mean, this is my first year of having a setback. I didn't have a complete loss by any means because all my queens are alive just with a handful of bees. That's the big thing. So then you get puzzled, you know, versus a whole entire colony loss. So the good thing is I'm not down colony loss. It's just a matter of figuring out this for the winter time, specifically in the fall for my treatments. So thank you very much. If you want to check out my blog, it's hunting.com, HUNTING B.com. There's my blog where I talk about all the things that I've done so far in the last 3 years. I'm going on my 4th year. And then, of course, Bee School is helping me a ton and things like that. So otherwise, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to email me, huntingbeeapiary@gmail.com. Of course, we have Instagram at huntingbeeapiary. We have TikTok at huntingbee. And then, of course, we have Facebook, Hunting Bee Apiary. And then, of course, if you need anything, all my information is found on my Instagram and our webpage and everywhere else. And you can just push the contact me button. Thank you so much and have a great day.